good afternoon, and welcome to ATW All Things Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Twist, and it's Monday, so you know what that means. WWE Monday Night Raw, some Seth freaking Rollins tonight.
Pairing.
All right, so anyway, let's get to it. It is Monday, but I'm going to jump right into it because I have a special guest today, Miss Kristal Marshall, former WWE Diva, who probably had maybe the coolest wedding I think you've ever seen on not only WWE television. I think it'd probably rival any soap operas, Days of Our Lives, all those bullshit ass soap operas that your grandma's watched. But anyways, yeah, let's just bring her on. Let's welcome Miss Kristal Marshall to the show. Good afternoon. Happy Monday.
Hey, happy Monday. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on. How are you today?
I'm doing relatively okay-ish. I had a friend convince me to do this 72-hour fast, and I'm almost at 24 hours, and I am struggling. So, mind over matter. I think I can do it. So
Now, is it just a fast to just kind of recharge the body? There's a lot of reasons why people do fast.
yeah. It's a fast to kind of recharge my body and to get my cells performing optimally. It helps a whole slew of issues like brain fog, IBS, anywhere from that, hormonal imbalancements, just getting your metabolism running, you know. So I'm gonna give it a shot and see how far I can make it.
Now, is that are you drinking water and black coffee, or are you just
I'm
not
actually
doing any?
I'm just drinking water, and in the morning I'm putting some ketones in the water first thing in the morning and just trying to just focus on that. And I will say that I'm almost at 24 hours, but I have ADD majorly, and this has really forced me to just kind of slow down and focus because I literally don't have much energy. So far I think it is working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great health benefits in fasting. I've done it from time to time, but usually with kind of a fast, I'll do like a bulletproof. I do bulletproof coffee in the morning.
Mm.
Because you can have fat when you're fasting. I guess it depends on what type of fast you're
Yeah.
doing. Um,
Yeah.
but if you're just drinking water and that's it,
Just
then
hardcore. Yep.
yeah, that's a brutal fast.
I will say I did have a few pumpkin seeds this morning to kick it off because pumpkin seeds, believe it or not, it is good if you want to get rid of parasites in your body, in your gut. So it's very anti-parasitic. So it's kind of what I added to the fast to kind of just help flush my system.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I bet your kids are probably staying away from you.
Yeah.
You're
They
you're
are.
you're you're like, I'm staying away from them.
I'm staying away from me at this point. Like, so you guys are gonna get a very honest interview because
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of interviews I like. I mean, I would rather people be real, and if we can get you in your grumpy phase during a fast, I
uh,
mean, that's all right.
well, you keep talking about that food you're gonna make tonight, and I just might get there.
Uh-oh. But hey,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on. I didn't have the privilege to interview you when you were on my show previously. My
Mhm.
former co-host got a chance to interview you, and we were going to talk a little bit about wrestling, but I think
Yeah.
this might be the spiritual hour with Kristal Marshall. So I
I
don't know.
mean,
We were talking about some stuff before we came on live on the show, and you piqued my interest as
mm,
far as hallucinogenics. So
well,
I think we might change it up a little bit today. You had mentioned something about DMT.
yeah. So, give you some backstory. So, the I moved to Texas 2 years ago from Denver, and it was actually during a really difficult time in my life. I was married for a couple of years and went through a really bad divorce and came here, and I was so excited for the fresh start. But then, after the newness kind of wore off, I kind of found myself back into the same mindset, just old habits, that sort of thing.
Right.
So, one of my really good friends had reached out to me. We were talking a bit about it, and her husband was in the special forces. And I've known them for a very, very long time. And she's like, I really think that you should look into DMT. It's something that really helped my husband. I think it would work well for you. Um, and like prior to that, I've honestly had a lot of judgments about that sort of thing. I was like, oh, it's a drug. It's this, it's that. Um, so I decided to go into this experience with a very, very open mind. And I actually went through two journeys no, 2023. Yeah, I went through it twice. And all I can say is it has completely shifted everything in my life. The way that I see the world, the way that I think, the way that I process emotions, the way that I see myself. Like it is it's really incredible, really. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've heard so many good things, and some scary things when it comes
oh
to,
yeah.
yeah, DMT, mushrooms, any type of hallucinogenics.
Well, so DMT is the strongest psychedelic on the planet, and DMT is in, so they call it the God molecule. And gosh, please don't come for me if I'm if I'm speaking about this incorrectly. But so basically, when you're born, your body releases DMT. Right before you die, your body releases DMT. But throughout our life, we get really disconnected with it, and our body just doesn't start to produce it or optimize it the way that it should. So we get disconnected. Um, so basically, long story short, you die. You go through a death. Um, I saw myself dead. Um, it's really hard to articulate in a way that the average person could understand if they haven't actually gone through that. But I will say that if you never believed in God and you go through this experience, you will most certainly believe after that. Um, and it's hard to not talk about this and get emotional. So, yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from my experience was I realized that I didn't love myself and value myself. And I remember coming back into my body and feeling like, wow, what a waste. What a waste. So, um, DMT is known as the great pattern interrupter, and it breaks you free of toxic habits, patterns, ideas, beliefs. Um, I used to drink a lot. Um, I would say I've had a few drinks since then, but I have not really drank since, gosh, really since then. It's really changed my relationship with alcohol. It's changed my relationship with my mother. I've had a strained relationship with her for many, many years. Um,
I think that's a common theme.
yeah, it's just made me appreciate the people uh, that I have in my life that I love, even the ones that were difficult to love. Like it's really just given me a new appreciation for life and taught me how to forgive. Um, I really can't say much about it, but I'm grateful. I will say that for anybody that goes into that experience and they're scared and they're unsure, obviously you want to make sure you do this with a professional, somebody who knows what they're doing. But I would say if you're scared, go into this with gratitude. As you go through it and it becomes scarier, just surrender, and be grateful for the experience. So yeah, there's a lot that's different.
Now, yeah, you bring that up, and you talked about a friend that was in, her husband was in the military. Post traumatic stress syndrome. It seems like a lot of people are looking for different avenues to help treat that. Um,
Yeah, there are
you
a lot
know,
of great organizations out there that are doing this, that are advocating for veterans. There's a company named Veteran Solutions, and you can look them up on Instagram. They do phenomenal work. I have really close ties to the veteran community. My ex-husband was a Green Beret. He struggled greatly with PTSD. I lost an ex-boyfriend as well in the military
oh, wow.
due to complex PTSD. And these were some of the things that I was carrying around for a long time. Also, childhood trauma, things that I never really unpacked. And I was able to actually come to my mom and tell her, and it just really, it was incredible. And I strongly encourage people to really, not everybody has access to this, but there are alternatives to drinking. There's alternatives to just self-defeating thoughts.
Right.
So I'm really grateful. I'm really happy that I was able to do that and be here with you guys and share this experience
Well,
because it's
that's awesome.
important. Yeah.
I think more and more people are moving away from Western medicine
Hmm.
for solutions. I know personally, I have I suffer with chronic pain from trigeminal neuralgia. I don't know if you've ever
I do know what
heard of
that
that.
is.
It's yeah, it's not an easy thing to deal with. Through Western medicine, doctors try to get me to go certain routes, and I rejected that because it wasn't going to actually address the issue. It's a lot of just band-aiding things, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to suffer with this. So over the last, I don't know, couple of years, I've looked at different routes, and now I'm seeing a cranial fascia
Hmm.
type of therapist. Which, if you've ever done any type of treatment like this, I mean, my first session was like an exorcism.
Oh yeah, I understand. So
So
what's interesting, so there's a book that I want you to read. It's called The Body Keeps the Score, and it talks about how stored up trauma manifests in your body, and it presents itself as arthritis, aches and pains. So before I went through with my first DMT ceremony, I literally was wearing a knee brace. I was in so much pain, and I was just like, I don't understand like where this is all coming from. And my practitioner was like, "Don't worry, it's going to get released." And I took it off that day, and totally fine. And every time that I feel like I start to feel some tension or things like that, I know I have to go center myself again, and I have to journal, and I have to like communicate and express what it is that's actually eating me up. And I feel like there's so many people that walk through life with chronic pain and they cannot put a finger on its source. They've gone to doctors, they've gotten x-rays, MRIs, and there's nothing there, but there is something there. So,
yeah, my doctors thought I was crazy for maybe the first 6 months.
mhm.
They're like, "We can't find anything." It's like, "Well, you can't actually find this because it's in the nerve and it's deep and this and that." And now I have like a wellness team. I have 3 people. So I'm seeing someone who's a cranial fascia, that type of work. I have a hard time with the pronunciation of it.
Yeah,
And then
same.
I'm seeing a therapist that we do oh, I lost you. Crystal, you still there? Let's see if I can get her back. Are you back? I lost you. It looks like my internet is still up. Well, while we're trying to get her back, who's excited for Monday Night Raw tonight? That was a 180. So, oh, let's see. I think we lost her. Maybe we're getting her back. All right. We got some technical difficulties for a moment. We'll wait here just a minute, see if we can get Miss Crystal back on. Crystal, are you there? Don't have any visual on Miss Marshall. Let's see. All right. Well, we will grab her as soon as we get the video feedback. So some big news that came out today. Oh, there she is. Hold on, let me bring her back. There we go. We brought you back.
I can't
Uh-huh.
hear you though.
You can't hear me? Oh goodness, I can hear you. Hold on. Let me see. Give me 1 second. Let me take you out. Let me. All right. I gotta love technology. We're just having some technical difficulty. Just a moment, everybody, while we're waiting. Okay, while we're waiting for Miss Marshall, I want to talk about WWE preview for tonight. So Triple H was on the Pat McAfee show today, and he announced that when they do go live on Netflix in 2025, that it will be uncensored, unedited, live. So they have officially announced the PG era in the WWE is over. So no more PG. They're going to make it friendly for everybody, but let's see where it goes. I think we got Miss Marshall back.
No, I'm back.
There you go. Technology. You got
Sorry,
no, it's
technology's so
okay.
good.
Let me see. Where was I? Okay. So now that we got you back. So I was saying I have like a theme or a team of like wellness people. So I have someone working on me for the cranial fascia. I'm seeing a therapist that's doing shadow work with me out in the woods.
Mm,
And now I have a functional type of chiropractor that's doing like laser treatments on me for my
okay.
pain. So I'm like throwing everything at this that I can that's non-traditional Western medicine.
Yeah,
Um,
good for you. That's definitely the way to go.
yeah, so
That's definitely
far,
the way to go.
so far it's it's helping. I'm still kind of new into it. I was seeing a physiatrist, if you know what that is, and I
I
was
have no idea.
yeah, they work on I think nerves and other things in your body. I can't remember exactly what they do, but I was doing some experimental treatments where I was actually getting perineural injections into my face, my jaw,
Wow.
right here, above my ear, down my neck, into my neck. I would get like anywhere from 8 to 12 injections every treatment. Um, and it's basically like baking soda. They would go into these like entrapment points of the nerves and it tries to help
Hmm.
clear it. It would work at times, other times it wouldn't, and it would kind of just up and down. And I was like, I'm tired of getting needles jammed into my face and neck every couple of weeks.
That's
So
crazy.
I need to look at something else.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
I've talked to other people that have told me about hallucinogenics, psilocybin, which is mushroom, and then
Yep.
um, the DMT thing. No one's talked to me about pain on that, but from the people that I'm seeing right now, they're all saying you have trauma in your body
Yeah, you do.
that you're holding on to, and it's just coming out and manifesting this way, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that's why I'm like, all right, I'm seeing a therapist. I'm seeing this person, that person. I'm telling my mom about it. She thinks I'm crazy, you know.
You know what's interesting is that like when I spoke to my parents about it, especially my mom, like she was so open to it and supportive about it. Like didn't really know anything about it, but just like they're like, well, we see a huge difference in you. So whatever it is, just keep going. So I will say that the biggest thing that I took away from this is I've been depressed my whole adult life. Like it's just something that I've dealt with. And like I have days where I'm sad. I have days where I feel down. I don't stay there. Like
Right.
I can't remember the last time that I stayed stuck in that space. And it's like it's so incredibly freeing. And I really feel like the reason why I wanted to talk about this today is because I know that there's so many people in the wrestling business, still active and not active, that could benefit from this on such a huge scale, like massive. So I think that the more people that talk about this and that spread the word and removes that judgment from, these types of treatments, it could really do some good in the business for sure.
Absolutely. And you talk about the wrestling business, you being in the wrestling business for a good amount of time. There's
Hmm.
like never any downtime because you're traveling so much, and then when you do get home, you can't even breathe, and then you're back on the road again. It's like, how do you have any time for any self care, any self love,
Yeah.
like all these things that, and you're getting inundated with just sensory overload like all day
Hmm.
long, right? So then
Yeah,
how do you come
absolutely.
down? How do you cope, right?
And I
People
don't know.
drink,
And,
people
I
smoke.
think they do. And I think what wrestling and actors also have in common is the fact that you are playing a character that's larger than life. And, you do that for so long, that has to take a toll on you on some level psychologically. So, there's all these things that I think that, people need to explore and think about. And I think that once we understand that a little bit more, then we can help get people the support and help they need. But I definitely think that there is a benefit, and hopefully, people in the company will start to kind of look at that as a help, as a aid for, some of the workers. So
Yeah, now you had mentioned you had stopped drinking. I actually stopped drinking next month. It'll be almost 2 years. I haven't touched
wow.
I haven't touched any alcohol. And the reason why I quit drinking, not that I drink a lot, but when you're drinking like one or two drinks like every night to kind of come
Exactly.
down, then it becomes a problem, right? And
Yep.
I
And that's
have
kind of,
kids.
yeah,
I have kids and work and everything else, and it's like I did it to help me cope and kind of just take the edge off, but that's the wrong way to do it. Because
yeah,
we start leaning on those things, and then it becomes every day, and then you notice you're highly irritable. All these things that go along with drinking that people don't realize. You don't have to be drunk for alcohol to really take
exactly.
bad effects on your body.
You don't need to have a DUI. You don't have to do any of that. I think for me, it was more so like, oh, I really like this wine. I'm going to try this wine. It goes well with this. And then you're like, oh, that's really good. I want to try a different one. And then before you know it, it's like, it's become a thing. It's become a habit and you need to break it because it's not good. No matter how
And,
you look at it, it's not good.
and it's everywhere. It's
Hmm.
it's in our culture. It's on television. It's on television shows. It's on reality shows. It's in movies. I mean, drinking is everywhere. You can't get
Yeah,
away from
it's
it.
it's definitely healed my relationship with alcohol. Like I'm not trying to not drink ever. Like I don't mind doing it socially,
Mhm.
but this whole casual, oh, it's the end of the day, I'll pour myself a drink. That whole mindset, the relationship with alcohol and people's relationships with food, they're very, very similar. They're very, very similar. The
Absolutely.
reasons why we eat a certain way and, you know, do certain things. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
yeah, I
right.
don't
When you're sad, you're like, oh, I'm gonna stuff my face with some ice cream. When we're happy, oh, I'm gonna go out for a big celebratory dinner and this and that. So,
yeah,
like when we're sad, we take in food. When we're happy, we take in food. When we're celebrating, it's like alcohol and food are definitely they those things go hand in hand when people are like
for sure.
for any reason to do it, they do it.
Yep. Absolutely. But I don't want to talk too much about this because I do know that we have a lot going on in the world of wrestling, and
We do. No, it's really interesting. And like you said, I think people really do need to find other ways of coping. And I think more and more people are starting to become open-minded to, like the things that
hmm
you're saying. So I just got a question about that. So do you have to go to Colorado to do that? Or can you
mm,
find or do
well,
you have to go out of the country?
there's methods. All I will
Okay.
say is that you need to make sure that you are with a experienced practitioner, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
You don't want to give too much away. You're like, I don't want to get myself in trouble here.
Exactly.
You're like, I went to Cuba and I did this, and people are like, wait a minute,
Right.
what? You went where? All right. Well, if you are interested in learning more about that, give it a Google, right? Try to
Yes,
find
and
find
definitely pick up the book, The Body Keeps the Score. That's a great book to start with as far as like trauma stored in the body and how it manifests and that sort of thing. So definitely start there.
absolutely. Well, thank you for that insight. That was definitely a change of from my show. No one's ever, I was like, I know Joe Rogan has talked quite a bit about
Oh,
um,
yeah.
different things like that, DMT and
And
all that
also,
stuff.
people need to look up a great video to watch. Is there's an interview that Mike Tyson had, not with Dana White, but there was one, I believe he's in Dana Point. If you go on YouTube and Google Mike Tyson DMT experience, like that experience, it it's a good one. It's He articulated it very well. So definitely check that
Okay.
out.
Yeah, he's actually he's up in my neck of the woods right now because he's training for a fight against Jake Paul.
Oh yeah.
So he's in northern Arizona. He's not too far down the road from me. He's training at a gym. That's funny that you mentioned him. But let's talk about wrestling.
Let's
Um,
talk about wrestling.
Now, you being a woman of color, let's fast forward to 2024. I'm a
Okay.
person of color. I feel now more than ever that we have like legitimate representation in the world of professional wrestling. You know,
Yeah.
when you look at the Attitude Era and even the time that you were in during the Divas era, it was, mostly blonde hair, blue eyed, white, it was a certain type of look that was in the
Sure.
world of professional wrestling. And for women of color back in the day, you had like Miss Jackie, you had Jazz, there were women back then they don't really get talked a whole hell of a lot now about now. But fast forward now, I mean, we have women like Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Mercedes Moné, formerly, Sasha Banks, Willow Nightingale. I mean, you could go on, and we could talk about so many women making an impact in professional wrestling today. As someone that was in the industry, I mean, seeing that now, I mean, that's got to make you feel like, damn,
It's
we kicked the door open, and here we
yeah.
are.
I think that it was definitely a collective, a collaboration for sure. And it's so funny when people ask me questions about this and how I feel, because I feel like I was just in wrestling for a blink, like a hot minute. But I do notice that in some aspects I was a bridge to kind of the women of the past and the women that are here performing now. And the reason why I say that is because wrestling is a beautiful sport. And as far as the creative aspects of wrestling, well, we lean heavy on stereotypes.
Right.
Stereotypes based on the world around us. Well, the world around us has changed drastically since, the age of jazz and myself. And so, therefore, wrestling has to evolve also. So, that's kind of largely why I see it's the way that it is, too. And I do think that the talent is undeniable now. And the women are just a force. I think wrestling really wasn't ready for that, I would say, because of whatever reasons. I don't believe in anything before its time, is basically
Right.
what I'm trying to say. But for me, it's such a bittersweet feeling to see how many beautiful women of color are there and succeeding and at the top and getting belts and getting opportunities. Like, I never thought I would see that, to be very honest with you. So, yeah, so I do have mixed emotions. Sometimes I'm like, damn, wish that was me. But then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, get it, girl. Like, that's so awesome. So it's good. It's necessary. And it's very reflective on the world around us. So, like, kudos to wrestling for finally, like, ripping the Band-Aid off and giving these women the platform they deserve, you know?
Honestly, I, people make jokes about women wrestling over the last number of years, or like, oh, it's the time to go to the concession stand, or oh, this is a commercial break right now.
Not
Personally,
anymore.
personally, I think the women in wrestling today put on better matches than the men. Um,
Absolutely.
I think they
Absolutely.
have a lot more to prove. There's less of them, so they really got to hold their spot. And if you look at the number of matches on a card, let's say for like a WWE, pay-per-view, or any other company, you might have one or two women matches on there, but the rest are
Right.
still men. So it's like when they're on the show, they gotta make it count. And
Oh,
I
they're
think I
earning.
yeah,
They're
they're
earning for
they're knocking
sure.
it out of the park every time,
Yep,
every
every
time.
time. And so consistent. And what's so funny? People will message me like, "Oh my gosh, you should go back." And I'm like, "Baby, I can't go back. I cannot do what they are doing. We are not the same." Like,
Right.
so I'm always tickled by that. But no, these girls are in a league of their own. And
Well,
I actually went to a SmackDown show here in Dallas not too long ago. I took the kids to see Bobby, and I was just sitting there looking at these girls like, "Oh my gosh." Like, they're legit. They're legit. And they look good too. That's the thing, is it's like, looks good. It's
yeah,
good.
because even if you go back in the day, let's say to someone like China, right? China had an amazing look. A lot of people will say now, well, she wasn't really that great in the ring, and she couldn't really talk on the mic, right? So
Hmm.
fast forward now, some of these women are phenomenal in the ring, great on the mic. They have a great look. They just,
Triple
they're just,
threats. They're
yeah,
triple threats.
they're
All of
just
them.
it. Yeah. So
Yep.
I know you say you're not the same, but if you could lock up with any woman today, who would you want to have a match with?
Bianca
Anybody.
Belair. Bianca. Bianca Belair.
She is,
Definitely.
I mean, she's like the pinnacle for like an athlete. Like
She
she's
is.
she's a specimen. She was Olympic athlete. I mean, CrossFit. I mean, you look at her head to toe, and she's a beast, and she's gorgeous. and she's
Absolutely.
phenomenal in the ring, and she's good on the mic.
But I will say this though, if I did go back into wrestling, I don't think that I would be actually working so much. I don't know. I think I'd want to go back as a manager or valet. Would love to see a little bit more of that back into wrestling, you know? I would.
Now, I had a show yesterday. I had a couple pro wrestlers on, a guy that's out here in Arizona, and then a woman, she's up in Jersey. And we were kind of saying the manager valet is kind of a lost art.
It
Um,
is.
they talk about some of these wrestlers that, they're going from company to company and they're like, oh, they weren't good on the mic. They were great on the ring, but not good on the mic. They got a good look, but they can't talk for shit. Well, it's like, back in the day, most of the big wrestlers did have like managers or valets because they couldn't talk on the mic or they weren't good on the mic. So it's like I think we should bring some of that back for sure because I think we're
Absolutely.
definitely missing that,
And I feel like my question is, why does everyone need to be good on the mic?
right? I mean, it's just like in life, some people are
It's
good
more
at
of the
this.
same.
Yeah.
Exactly. 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 Mix it up. Make it interesting for
I mean, you
sure.
got you got people like Paul Heyman, who's amazing. But there's really not too many people that you can say, oh, they're great manager. I mean, I think legit Paul Heyman might be the only guy in the WWE right now that actually comes out as a mouthpiece for anybody.
Yeah, for sure.
You
I
know,
agree.
you had MVP. He was Bobby Lashley's mouthpiece for a little while, and I thought that was great. Um, But I mean, honestly, and valets are another thing that's like a thing of the past. And I guess you
Yeah.
could say, well, it's a new time now, and we really don't want women as eye candy on the arm of, a big
Yeah,
monstrous wrestler.
but I feel like if you can kind of create a hybrid, more of a valet slash manager,
Hmm.
and have a strong female mouthpiece and presence there, I think that that could definitely work. You know, that could work. Everything goes, anything goes. It's wrestling, you know? I do think that there's always a changing of the guard. And I think that, as you watch wrestling evolve and change through the years, there's a reason why it does, because we need to keep the product fresh.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
absolutely. So I guess we're probably never going to see Crystal Marshall versus Bianca Belair, right?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Now
I don't think so.
you had mentioned like stereotypes. I think something that bothered me as a young guy. Um, I'm of Mexican American descent, so like the only guy that I ever could look at as a champion was Eddie Guerrero. But I thought a lot of that stuff back in the day to me was cringy, because I
Hmm.
thought it felt very stereotypical, and the same thing for pretty much anybody non-white in the wrestling world on TV over the last 20 or 30 years. I mean, it's had some kind of cringy stereotypical moment. I think as a
For sure.
wrestling fan my whole life, it's hard to look back on some of those things. But now, in the WWE, you have Damian Priest, who is of Puerto Rican descent. So he's the heavyweight champ. So we have like a legit guy representing Latinos, and
Sure.
he's not stereotypical. All these things, no knock on Eddie Guerrero. He was amazing, but
Right.
like most of that stuff, that stereotypical stuff bothered me. And
Sure.
and
And I'm
now
sure it I'm
now
sure
I
it
can
bothered a
watch it.
lot of people. I'm sure it bothered a lot of people, but we also have to remember there's a reason why we fell in love with wrestling, because the thing about wrestling is wrestling was never afraid to say the things that we dare not say. It was a space that people could be raw, right? And I feel like as the world evolves, I hope that the writers become very creative in a way to do this, with also being sensitive at the same time to certain things. But stereotypes exist for a reason,
Right.
unfortunately. And I'm saying this as a Black woman. And I think that that is part of wrestling that I loved and I hated.
Yeah, I mean, because like Eddie Guerrero sounded like a lot of guys that I knew growing up, but I didn't sound like that, and it was just
Sure.
it was it was great, and then at times I was like, I don't really want to
Like
see this on TV.
enough, enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it's like,
sure. It's a fine
and
line.
I felt like at times it was beat. It's like beating a dead horse. It's like
Yeah.
I don't want to see this anymore. And now, fast forward, it's like, it's awesome because, I think there was an interview with Bianca Belair a little while back, and how she didn't talk too much on the mic in the beginning. And I think under the old, Vince McMahon ownership, leadership, she said that she didn't want to do too many interviews or talk on the mic because they were kind of making her do stereotypical type, ghetto type of shit.
Really?
Yeah, and she's like,
Wow.
I don't talk like that. You know what I mean? Like, and I could understand that would
I
be
get that
extremely
100%.
upsetting. Yeah,
But
that
I
would
feel
be
like if
really
somebody
upsetting.
wants to do a gimmick and they're okay with the gimmick, then let them do the gimmick. You know what I mean? But don't force somebody into something. That's my whole thing, So,
Exactly. And I think she kind of shied away from talking on the mic earlier in her career, but now she definitely does get on the mic more. And I love that it looks like her genuine, authentic self.
it absolutely is.
It's
Yeah.
not a gimmick or a character. She's not being forced to be ghetto or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
that's got
Yeah.
to be really difficult to deal with. I got to know what you're laughing about though. So is there a memory that's popping up in your head?
There's not one specific memory, but I do remember working with the writers sometimes and them writing stuff for me. And I'm like, I would never say that. You know what I mean? I would never say, like, who says that? Like, where are you even, getting this from? So yeah, I stand corrected. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So now when
Yeah.
you talk about writers, you were in the industry, and
Ah!
and I think now especially, I mean, the writers are all white, right?
No,
Most of them are white, aren't they?
I
I
don't know.
mean,
I don't know about the writers now, but when I was there, they were not all white. No.
really? Because I'm like, what does that look like? Because when you see like the writers' room for like comedy and thing like that, it's like mostly white men, and they're writing in the voice of someone brown, someone black, someone
Right.
Asian. It's like you got to have more representation if you're authentically writing for someone.
Sure, sure. I don't know if I can necessarily say that. I would say that as far as diversity standpoint, looking back now, I wish there were more female writers.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that.
I think
Were there
that's a
any
good
female writers when you were there?
gosh, that was such a long time ago. I don't think so though.
Right?
I I don't think so.
And
I
there's
don't think so.
so much has been like of the
But I will
curtain,
say
like
this. Hold on a second. I will say
okay,
this. We're talking about wrestling 17 years ago. It was a very, very different product. This product was marketed towards red blooded American. It was blood, gore, and boobs. So, in a lot of ways, I'm like, would I have liked to seen a female writer or more female writers? Yes. But considering the product at the time and the direction of their focus, okay. Now, yes. I think that that's probably a little bit, you know.
well, I think I've had the conversation with a few different people. I don't know if you're familiar with Keith Elliott Greenberg. He's a WWE
Mm-mm.
historian. He's been in and around the WWE for almost 40 years. And I was asking him, is kayfabe dead? And it sounds like it is. And because of the internet, and because there's just people people in the internet wrestling community that just have no lives, and they're just into everything, and they know everything that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Me personally, that's been a fan since the 80s. I kind of like the mystery, the mystique. I don't want the curtain all the way pulled back because I feel like it has been, right? And I don't
So let me ask you a question.
sure.
Would you stop watching?
No, I mean I wouldn't stop
Okay, hold on a
watching.
second. So the magic of wrestling isn't
Mhm.
if it's kayfabe or not. It's do
Right,
you believe and do you want to believe? And I feel like as long as people want to believe, okay, and as long as people have kids and they introduce their children to this product, it's always going to keep that dream
right.
alive because it's wrestling's an escape from the mundane.
Yeah,
And
I
as
mean
long as there's a desire for that, whether there's kayfabe or not, movies are fake. This isn't a real
yeah,
story, but you
right,
still watch it. You know that Brad Pitt was married to Angelina Jolie, not this woman on TV, but you watch it because it's an escape, right?
right.
So I don't think that that's ever going to be an issue. Maybe for the hardcore wrestling fans, they're going to compare it to things that they've observed before, but nobody's going to stop watching because of that. It's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, you make a valid point. I think kind of what I was getting around to is they really reveal like, hey, on Monday Night Raw, this person produced this segment and this person wrote
Mm.
this and this and that and this. They're pulling it back too much. So when you talk about writers,
Ah,
no female names ever get mentioned in writing this segment. So I don't think
mm.
much has changed there. And I think that's kind of what
Okay.
I was driving towards. But it's like
I
they pulled the curtain back too much, right?
I think my biggest issue with the writers, and I don't know where this came from, has always been they will have a storyline that they're working on, working on, working on. Then you go into the show and they completely abandon it and they pick something else up to go a different
Right.
direction. You're like, wait a minute. We were building up to this whole thing. There was this match, that match, and now we're just dropping it. There's no closure. There's no payoff. You
Right.
know, so I think that part of it for me was like, where's the thought process? Like, are we building a story or are we just filling slots? You know, so that to me, from a performer standpoint, was like, why even bother? Like,
Yeah, that would be really difficult.
mm-hmm.
It almost sounds like, not to be silly, but I've been a big Saturday Night Live fan my whole life, and
Yeah.
um, you know when they talk about writing segments and skits and this and that, and like guy will work on something like a whole week, and then Saturday comes and they're like, oh, we're just gonna pull it. We're not even gonna air your skit. It's like what? It's like,
Exactly.
and to hear that that kind of stuff happens in wrestling, I mean, that's just it's kind of funny to think
It
about
happens a
that way.
lot. It happens a lot. It happens a
Do
lot.
you think it's
Yeah.
still happening, or do you think
Oh,
that
yeah. Absolutely. I think
it
so.
feels like
Yeah.
the company is definitely changed in the post Vince McMahon era, and it seems like
Mm.
maybe a little more organized maybe than before, but I don't work in the industry, so I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. All of
Yeah.
it.
I wouldn't know, but I would assume that there's probably still a bit of that going on. I would think. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think. I was reading something and I kind of totally lost my train of thought. I'm thinking my ADHD is kicking in.
Oh,
And then someone just popped up a comment that I wasn't gonna post on the. It said, "Who was the manager for Umaga?" I'm like, I don't, I don't remember that. But okay.
Umaga.
Did he have a
That's
manager?
he was who was Umaga with? Hmm. Why do I want to say Paul, but I know it's not Paul.
For I don't know. That's going back, and I don't necessarily remember.
I'm
So
gonna have to Google it when we get off of this call because I want to know. I'll send
give
it
it a
to
Google.
you.
Absolutely. Well,
Yes.
Miss Marshall, I know you're doing it fast. I'm not going to keep you too much longer, so I
Whew.
appreciate you coming on today.
Yes. Anytime. Anytime.
Now, what are you currently doing right now? Outside of the WWE, what do you got going on?
I'm raising two future WWE champions myself. No, I busy raising my kids, obviously, and I am working in home interiors, which I'm really, really enjoying. But mostly right now, I'm focusing on my kids. My son is heavily involved in football, just getting him prepped for next season. My daughter, she's a stud sprinter. Her 200-meter relay team won districts and regionals. So just really making sure they have everything they need to be successful. So my focus is on them. And 5 years from now, they're both going to be in college. So that's what I'm focusing on right now.
So those athletic genes,
Yeah,
they run deep.
they do. They do. Yep.
Or maybe they'll be future either SmackDown or Raw superstars, possibly.
I think so. I think so. I think for sure that there is some possibility that my son will follow in his dad's footsteps for sure. I think so.
Now, is there any hesitation on your part of them getting into the business that you're familiar with, and Bobby's obviously familiar with?
No,
No,
no. I
no
think that
hesitation.
the company loves legacy athletes,
Yeah.
and my son, he's going to sophomore year now. He wrestled varsity his freshman year. It's he's a natural. So never say never. I could definitely see that happening for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I look forward to it, and yeah, I'll try not to tease you too much with what I'm making tonight or this week. So
Oh, yeah, I gotta make it. I gotta make it to 8 o'clock, and we'll decide if I'm gonna do the next 2 days.
Right? You're like, maybe not. You're like, I did 24 hours, and I'm good with that.
I did my best.
Yeah,
I did my best.
I used to own a restaurant, so like I had a Mexican restaurant in Metro Phoenix, so I won awards for like carne asada and all kinds of stuff. So I love to cook.
Are you really gonna do this to me right now? Wow.
I had to. You loved hearing what I was making earlier, but you know.
Oh man.
But girl,
my mouth is watering.
Girl, you're in Texas. You got all kinds of great food. You throw a rock, and I'm sure.
First of all, I'm in Dallas, so yes, I have a lot of good food. But don't kill me, Dallas people. But Dallas is not the spot for Mexican food, unless somebody knows.
It is actually. I gotta be honest. Texas. I'm sorry. Texas is not the spot for Mexican food.
I'm not gonna say anything. I finished high school in California, in Oxnard, California, which is, if you know anything about Oxnard. So I'm gonna leave my comments to myself. But
well, I'm in Arizona, but I'm originally from Detroit. And believe it or not, Southwest Detroit has a big Mexican community that's called Mexican Town. So for me, the best Mexican food anywhere is in Southwest Detroit.
I don't know. I had pretty decent Mexican food in Houston once. And I know like El Paso, there's good Mexican food there, but I like Mexican food from the West Coast the best, like West Mexico. That's my take, but I eat it all. So if anybody wants to send me some tacos, please.
Well, shit, if you ever come out to Arizona, I mean, I can whip you up some like the best carne asada tacos you've ever had.
Yes.
Ever had.
So what's the secret? Because I've heard mixed things. People tell me to marinate it in orange juice. Some people say grapefruit juice.
Grapefruit juice.
I've heard.
Whoever told you that should get smacked in the back of the head. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, you can just drop me that recipe when we get off this call.
I mean, it's an award. It's an award-winning recipe. I mean, but I would give it to Miss Kristal Marshall for sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I want that, and then I want a good recipe for some beans.
Oh, beans is Beans is a real bitch to make. Because
really,
yeah, there's so many different types of ways. So do you want to do pinto beans? Do you want to do black beans? Like there's a lot of that.
I want to do pinto beans.
Pinto beans? Yeah, I mean I got a pretty good pinto bean recipe, but I mean, yeah, it's beans is something that I don't like making from scratch. I like to focus on the meat. Yeah, I like focusing on the carne asada and the chicken and the beef.
Okay.
All of that stuff. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a good bean recipe.
Damn. Okay.
All right, I do have a bomb salsa recipe and carne asada though.
All right. Well, hook it up. Hook it up.
Well, thank you, Miss Kristal Marshall, for joining me today. Tell my audience where to find you.
You can find me on Instagram at BAJAN Bombshell 83. That's Bajan Bombshell 83. If you don't know what Bajan is, Google it.
Right, there you go. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and hang tight.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll talk to you here after the show.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today, everybody. This is ATW All Things Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Twist. Thank you, Miss Kristal Marshall. Make sure you find her on all her socials. And happy Monday, everybody. And we are out of here.